Barron Trump stepped out of the black SUV, his tall frame towering above the other passengers. It was a cold, rainy morning, as he adjusted his overcoat and made his way toward the building entrance. The glimmering corporate headquarters of one of New York's top firms stood before him, a symbol of prestige and power. Barron's calm demeanor belied the name he carried. He was not there to wield influence, but to attend a private charity meeting on behalf of his family. But as Barron approached the sleek glass doors, a firm hand stopped him. "Excuse me, sir, do you have an appointment?" the security guard asked in a gruff voice. Barron offered a polite nod and replied, "I believe my name is on the list." Barron Trump. The guard's eyebrows shot up, but not in recognition. He simply stared and shook his head. "I don't see your name. You'll have to step aside." Rain began to drizzle harder. People nearby whisper. Some even snickered. Barron could feel their eyes on him, waiting to see how he'd react. Would he use his name to demand respect instead? Barron's response was completely unexpected. A quiet smile. And so began a day that would test him in ways no one could imagine. The rain showed no mercy as Barron stood outside, his coat now soaked. People passed by, some curious, others indifferent, the security guards. A stern expression didn't waver. Barron's quiet demeanor seemed to annoy him. "Step aside, kid," the guard barked. "We're running a tight ship here, of course," Barron said, moving back with grace, but inside a small pang of disappointment hit him. He had prepared for this meeting for weeks, hoping to make a positive impact on the world, just as his mother Melania always encouraged. Minutes turned hours. Every attempt to contact the organizers failed. Meanwhile, whispers spread among passers-by. A woman nudged her friend. "Isn't that Trump's kid?" The friend scoffed. "Looks like he's finally getting a dose of the real world." Barron heard every word he could feel, the judgment cutting into him like shards of ice, but he refused to let anger take hold. Instead, he looked back at the guard and said, "I'm sure you're just doing your job. Thank you." The guard's eyes softened for a moment, but he quickly hid it. Little did anyone know this was only the beginning of Barron's trials. Barron's phone buzzed, but every call led to voicemail. The drizzle had turned into a downpour, leaving him drenched despite the rain. He refused to leave. This wasn't about his name or status. It was about doing what was right. An older man with a worn umbrella approached. "Hey, son, you okay?" he asked, his voice kind. Barron nodded. "I'm fine. Thank you. You don't look fine. Why don't you head inside?" the man said, pointing to a nearby cafe. "I'll wait here," Barron replied with a faint smile. The man shook his head, muttering something about kids these days. Barron watched him leave, the warmth of the offer lingering, but his resolve remained firm. He would not abandon this meeting. No matter how insignificant he felt in this moment across the street, a young girl took a picture of him within minute social media bust. Barron Trump denied entry. "Oh, about time. He's treated like the rest of us." One post read. Barron scrolled through the comments, feeling the sting of every word, yet he took a deep breath and stood his ground. He wasn't giving up as Barron waited. His mind wandered to memories of his father's presidency, the constant media scrutiny, the endless opinions about his family. It had been a lonely childhood in many ways, one marked by isolation and pressure. He'd often wondered if people saw him as more than a last name. What's so important about this meeting? Anyway, he thought, clenching his fists, he remembered the cause he was fighting for, raising funds for underprivileged students. His mother's voice echoed in his mind. "Kindness is a choice, even when the world is unkind to you." A loud voice jolted him back. The security guard was arguing with another man. "I told you he's not on the list," the guard said angrily. "The man?" A well-dressed executive glanced at Barron with suspicion. "This doesn't look good for you, kid. Just leave," the man said dismissively. Barron didn't flinch. "I'm not here for appearances," he replied calmly. The executive smirked. "Then you're wasting your time." But Barron wasn't wasting anything. He was learning about people, about resilience. And he wouldn't forget hours passed, and Barron's stomach growled. He hadn't eaten all day across the street. The smell of freshly baked pretzels wafted through the air. He couldn't help but stare as a vendor handed one to a little boy. Suddenly the boy ran over and offered the pretzel to Barron. "Here, you look hungry," the boy said. Chilly Barron's heart swelled with gratitude. "Thank you," he said, crouching down to the boy's level. "What's your name, Liam?" the boy replied. Barron gave him a warm smile. "You have a good heart, Liam." The moment was small, but it restored a flicker of hope in Barron sometimes. Kindness came from unexpected places, and sometimes that was all one needed to keep going. The photo of Barron standing in the rain was now viral. News outlets were picking up the story, Barron Trump denied entry to exclusive firm Power Play, or mistake headlines. Read meanwhile on the street, the whispers around him grew louder. "He must have done something wrong," a man said. "Why else would they deny him?" A group of teenagers laughed openly. "Guess money can't buy everything." One of them, Jared Barron's jaw tightened, but he remained silent. He had learned long ago that responding to hate only fueled it. But deep down, the comment stung. He wasn't perfect, but he had always tried to do what was right. Was that not enough? He shook off the doubt and looked back at the firm's doors. He still had hope someone would come for him. An assistant from the firm finally emerged, glancing at Barron with disdain. "You're still here?" she asked, her tone sharp. "I'm waiting for the charity meeting," Barron replied. She rolled her eyes. "They're busy. You should leave." But Barron caught something in her gaze, a flicker of guilt. She knew something he didn't. Is there a reason? "I'm being kept out," he asked. She hesitated, then whispered, "Some people don't want you here. They think your name will overshadow the cause." Barron's heart sank. So this wasn't about protocol. It was about prejudice. He thanked her, even though the truth weighed heavy on him. Barron sat on a nearby bench, rain pooling around him. He thought of the students he was trying to help, kids who had no voice or platform. He couldn't let this stop him. He pulled out his phone and started drafting an email. If he couldn't get inside, he'd find another way to support the cause. His determination burned brighter, now fueled by the obstacles he faced just as Barron hit send on his email. A group of reporters appeared. Cameras flashed, microphones shoved toward him. "How does it feel to be rejected, Mr. Trump?" one asked mockingly. Barron took a deep breath. "This isn't about me," he said firmly. "It's about the cause." But the reporters weren't interested in his message. They wanted drama, and Barron refused to give it to them as they pressed on. He felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. How much more could he take out of nowhere? The woman who had organized the meeting appeared. She rushed toward Barron, her face full of apology. "I'm so sorry. She said there was a mistake." "Please come inside." Barron hesitated, glancing at the security guard who had denied him entry instead of anger. Said, "Thank you for doing your job." The guard looked stunned. The crowd watched in silence as Barron entered the building. Little did they know this was only the beginning of his journey. As Barron stepped inside the sleek lobby, the warmth of the interior was a stark contrast to the cold he had endured, but the glances he received from the staff were far from welcoming. The organizer, Mrs. Caldwell, led him to the elevator, her apologies continuing. "I had no idea they would treat you like that." "She said it's okay," Barron replied softly, though his heart was heavy when the elevator doors opened to the conference room. A silence fell over the attendees. Whispers circulated. Some stared openly. While others avoided eye contact, Barron's name carried weight, but it wasn't always the kind that opened doors. He could sense the judgment. "Everyone, this is Barron Trump," Mrs. Caldwell announced, trying to inject warmth into the room. "He's here to support our cause." The applause was sparse. A man in the front row muttered, "Of course he'd show up for the publicity." Barron chose to ignore the comment. He took his seat, determined to focus on why he was there. Yet the weight of their skepticism bore down on him. He wondered how long he could keep enduring this storm. Barron's turn to speak came quickly. Mrs. Caldwell introduced him. Her voice, filled with encouragement, meant but. The room remained tense. He stood towering over the podium and adjusted microphone. "Thank you for having me," he began. His voice was steady, but his palms were damp. "I'm here because I believe in this cause. Education should be accessible to everyone no matter where they come from." As he continued, he shared personal stories about his own privileges and how he'd seen the struggles of others firsthand. "I know, I come from a family with many advantages, but that's why I'm here to use what I've been given to make a difference." A few people nodded, but others remained stiff. Their arms crossed when he finished. The applause was polite, but not enthusiastic. Barron returned to his seat, feeling the sting of their doubt, but he told himself that real change wasn't about applause, it was about persistence. During the break, a man approached Barron. He was tall with sharp features and an air of authority. "I'm James Carter," he said, extending a hand. Barron shook it cautiously. "Interesting speech," James said, his tone laced with sarcasm, but actions speak louder than words. "What have you actually done for this cause?" Barron hesitated. He'd supported several initiatives, quietly avoiding the spotlight. "I've contributed to scholarships and programs," he replied. James smirked. "Contributions from your father's bank account." I'm sure Barron's face flushed, but he kept his composure. "I'm here because I care not." "Because of my name," he said firmly. James laughed bitterly. "We'll see." He walked away, leaving Barron feeling exposed. The room's eyes seemed to follow him, their judgment palpable as the event continued. Barron noticed a young volunteer struggling to carry a stack of boxes without hesitation. He stood and helped her. "Thank you," she said. "Surprised, I didn't think someone like you would." She trailed off. Embarrassed, Barron smiled. "Someone like me. I mean, you're Barron Trump," she said. "People expect you to act different. People expect a lot of things," Barron replied, placing the boxes down. "But I'm just here to help." The volunteer smiled back her opinion of him, clearly shifting. It was a small moment, but it reminded Barron why he was there. Actions did speak louder than words, and he intended to let his actions define him. As the event wound down, Barron's phone. Bust a Friend had sent him a link to an article. The headline read, "Barron Trump Charity Stunt or Genuine Effort." The article dissected his every move, questioning his intentions and mocking his speech. His stomach churned as he read the comments. Another spoiled rich kid pretending to care. One read, "Where's his father's checkbook?" Mocked another. Barron closed the article, trying to shake off the negativity, but the doubts crept in. Was he making a difference? Or was this all for nothing? He glanced around the room, seeing faces that still seemed skeptical for the first time. He wondered if he should have stayed home, as Barron. Sat alone, lost in thought. An older woman approached him. She had kind eyes and a quiet presence. "You handled yourself well today," she said, sitting beside him. "Thank you," Barron replied, though he wasn't sure he believed it. "People can be harsh," she continued, "but kindness is a rare strength. Don't lose it." Her words struck a chord. "Why are you telling me this?" Barron asked. She smiled. "Because I see someone who genuinely wants to help, and that's worth more than all the applause in the world." Barron nodded her words, giving him a renewed sense of purpose. He wasn't here to prove anything to the world, he was here to do what was right. As the event concluded, Mrs. Caldwell approached Barron with an unexpected request. "One of our sponsors backed out," she said, worry etched on her face. "We need someone to cover the gap, or the scholarship program will fall short." Barron didn't hesitate. "I'll do it," he said. Her eyes widened. "Are you sure it's a significant amount?" "Education matters," Barron replied. "I'll find a way." He knew the donation would invite more scrutiny, more accusations of using wealth to solve problems, but he didn't care. The cause was bigger than his pride. News of Barron's donations spread quickly as expected. The criticism came in waves, throwing money at the problem. One headline read, "Trying to buy respect," another claimed. But amidst the negativity, there were glimmers of support. Stories emerged of students who had benefited from the scholarships. Their gratitude was genuine. Their lives changed. Barron focused on those stories, letting them drown out the noise. He had done what he came to do, and that was enough. Weeks later, Barron received the letter. It was from Liam, the boy who had offered him the pretzel. "Thank you for helping kids like me." It read, "I got one of the scholarships and now I can go to school." Tears welled in Barron's eyes. All the insults, the doubts, the struggles, they were worth it. For moments like this, he folded the letter carefully, a reminder that even small acts of kindness could ripple into something greater standing at a podium. Once more, Barron addressed a new audience. This time, the room was filled with students, their faces lit with hope. "You are the future," he said, "and I'm honored to support you." The applause was thunderous, but Barron didn't seek it. His purpose was clear: to lead with kindness, not power. If this story moved, you don't forget to like and subscribe. Share your thoughts in the comments. It takes effort to create stories like this, and your support means everything. Let's celebrate kindness together.